So Florida Governor Ron Desantis has released an ad in which his wife talks about how great he is. It's really a doozy. Let's check it out in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So I once read a column that talked about Ron DeSantis as the potential standard bearer for the MAGA crowd. After all, it's pretty clear he is running for president, right? But unlike Donald Trump, who always had kind of a ability to make a joke out of things, Ron DeSantis comes across as, let's face it, a bully. Clearly, this is an issue that Ron DeSantis' campaign is concerned about, prompting them to release this ad with his wife talking about what a great guy he is. Let's check it out here.
I get asked all the time, who is Ron DeSantis? Well, he's the kid who grew up right here in Florida, working his tail off, paying his own way through school, then volunteering to serve in the Navy and deploying to Iraq. He's the man who I fell in love with from the moment we met. And he's the dad of 3 very rambunctious, energetic children. Mamie, our 2-year-old little comedian, Madison, our beautiful, sweet 5-year-old, and Mason, our 4-year-old athlete. But if you want to know who Ron DeSantis really is, when I was diagnosed with cancer and I was facing the battle for my life, he was the dad who took care of my children when I couldn't. He was there to pick me off of the ground when I literally could not stand. He was there to fight for me when I didn't have the strength to fight for myself. That is who Ron DeSantis is.
Now, I gotta tell you, that's an effective ad. That's a very moving ad. It's hard not to get choked up hearing her talk about her experience with cancer. But the reality is, it's completely devoid of any kind of substance. I'm reminded of a campaign I was involved in a long time ago, someone who was running for judge, where he put out this big piece of literature and you kept unfolding it and unfolding it and unfolding it. And in the middle of it was just a picture of his wife talking about what a great guy he was. And the reaction I had is I was kind of pissed that I went through this whole process of opening up this big piece of literature only to hear something from somebody who, frankly, if she didn't like him, there'd really be something wrong with him. I mean, as I watch this ad, the one reaction I'm left with more than anything is that Casey DeSantis should vote for her husband. The rest of us, though, that's a different story. I mean, Ron DeSantis has shown himself to be a heartless bully who doesn't care about anybody who doesn't look exactly like him. You have to remember, this is the guy who pushed through the Don't Say Gay legislation and has hamstrung teachers in what they can talk about in class, claiming that all kinds of books included critical race theory in it, even though later it turned out none of them had it in there. And when Disney World, which has a tradition of being friendly to the gay community, receiving pressure from its own employees, finally stood up against this action by Ron DeSantis, he moved to take away the special tax arrangement that they have with the state of Florida. He's the guy who basically misused taxpayer funds to fly an airplane to Texas, lie to immigrants who were there, immigrants who were legally there, and then fly them to Nantucket, all at taxpayer expense. Oh, and we can't forget about the Fox News cameras that were along for the ride. This is the guy who voted repeatedly against aiding other communities when they were in crisis. But of course, when Hurricane Ian came, he was first to be calling up the federal government, asking for help, and having to acknowledge that Joe Biden was doing a great job assisting the state. I loved watching the press conference with Joe Biden and Ron DeSantis. DeSantis looked like a little child who was kind of sent back to his corner after he'd misbehaved, with Joe Biden being the responsible father that he is. And it's worth noting, of course, that unlike how things were in the Trump administration, there was never a hesitation from Joe Biden as to the fact that we were going to help Americans who were in need, even if these Americans were people who'd voted against him. Now, Ron DeSantis has shown himself to be a hypocrite and a culture warrior who's fighting against anybody who doesn't look or act just like him, going even farther than the Republican Florida legislature went in creating only one congressional district for the entire state that could be represented by a person of color. I mean, Ron DeSantis may be a good guy to his wife, but to the rest of us, not so much. The sad truth is, though, that this kind of ads tugging on people's heartstrings is exactly the type of thing that could work in a campaign like this. And so it's all the more reason for those of us who actually know about his real record to spread the word and make sure that people across Florida know who Ron DeSantis really is, and not just who Casey DeSantis says he is. Well, while we're talking about Ron DeSantis, why don't you check out this other video over here where I talk about all the problems that Ron DeSantis caused with the COVID pandemic. I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.